Hey everybody, it's back to school season and people are on the lookout for new laptops. I got my brand new Thinkpad T14 Generation 3 here, and I've got a relatively new 2022 M2 MacBook Air for comparison. Now these two laptops are going to be good for two very different kinds of people, and we're going to get into that today. For one thing, this one is $1,200 full price. This one is typically around $1,200 to $1,300. I got it for about $1,000 on sale, but that's typically what the price is. So these are relatively similar in terms of price. Now for specs, there is a difference. The ThinkPad comes with a AMD Ryzen 6650U processor with 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigabytes of storage, and a 39.3 watt-hour battery. Whereas the MacBook comes with the M2 chip, which is brand new, very powerful, very efficient. It comes with only 8 gigabytes of RAM and a 256 gigabyte SSD with a 52 watt-hour battery. So right off the bat, I can say that the MacBook has the larger battery. First, we're going to compare the build quality of these two machines. I can say that I prefer the build quality of the ThinkPad for a couple of reasons. It uses ABS plastic and a magnesium chassis, while this one uses an aluminum unibody, which Apple has done for a very long time. But there are some differences on the outside. First and foremost, the ThinkPad is thicker. It's not that thick, it's like 0.7 inches thick, whereas the MacBook is something like 0.55 inches thick. They are the same weight at 2.7 pounds each. But the difference is the MacBook almost feels heavier and more dense because it's a tighter, smaller package, whereas the ThinkPad does feel a little bit lighter in the hand. So that's just something to consider. Also, the ThinkPad has a more generous selection of ports. Get the USB-Cs, HDMI, USB-A, headphone jack, Ethernet, another USB. Whereas on the Mac, all you get is two USB Type-Cs and MagSafe and a headphone jack, and that is it for ports. So if you have the M2 MacBook Air, you better be ready to bring a dongle around with you. Moving on to displays, I will handily say that the MacBook Air has the better display here. It's got something like 98% of the P3 color gamut, whereas the ThinkPad has something like 45% NTSC. So the MacBook has a lot better colors overall. It has a brighter display at 500 nits versus the ThinkPad, which has only a 300 nit display. 300 nits is perfectly fine for indoor use, and right now it's maxed out. But if you are to use it outside, the MacBook would have a real edge here. And also for watching YouTube videos, I think it's very clear to see that the MacBook has an advantage in terms of just image quality, and I'm going to show you that now. As you can see, the black levels on the Mac are a lot better. Things are more colorful, vibrant, whereas the ThinkPad display is just okay. It is not at all made for video consumption, but it can do it just fine, and I watch videos on it daily. I stick to my 4K TV as my main enjoyment device for video. Alright, moving on to speakers. I have to say that the ThinkPad definitely has louder speakers. At 30% volume and 30% on the MacBook, the ThinkPad sounds about 20 to 30% louder. I think the MacBook has slightly cleaner audio, and it's very decent. Neither of them is amazing, but I think I would give a slight edge to the ThinkPad for its Dolby audio. But you know, they're both really good, so you can't go wrong in either scenario. Alright, moving on to the most important part for a lot of people, the keyboard and the touchpad. For me, the ThinkPad has the far superior keyboard. It is a joy to type on once I had gotten used to the lower travel. The MacBook, on the other hand, is not a great keyboard, but I'll say it's passable in many instances. If you're a typist or a coder, you're not going to love the keyboard on the Mac, but it'll be usable once you get used to it. That's all I can say about that. Now in terms of touchpad, I think it's kind of tough because the ThinkPad has a very slick, very accurate touchpad, and same thing with the Mac. The Mac has a glass touchpad that has a larger area, but the ThinkPad has a decent area as well, and I think I give it the ThinkPad a slight edge in the touchpad area. Now in terms of overall performance, it is interesting. The ThinkPad is very much a mid-range CPU. It's got a 6650U, which is a pretty efficient Ryzen CPU. But I have to say that Apple has done something amazing with their M1 and M2 CPU. Performance per watt is just insanity because there's just things that you can do on the M2 MacBook Air that you straight up cannot do on the ThinkPad. Video editing is certainly one of them. Both of them have good Geekbench scores. I think overall the ThinkPad had very decent scores, but the M2 MacBook Air had noticeably better scores on both single core and multi-core, so it is the more powerful machine and it uses less power at the same time. And let's go into the Geekbench results now. I also put both of these through DaVinci Resolve and edited a 10-minute YouTube video and basically had them export. In terms of timeline efficiency, the ThinkPad was okay. Like, it could easily scrub through the timeline and make the edits, but the MacBook was significantly better at scrubbing through the timeline. It just felt smoother overall, and it might have just been because of their dedicated video encoder on the M2 chip. But in terms of exporting video, the ThinkPad took that video and exported it in about 5 minutes and 12 seconds on a high performance mode, whereas the MacBook did it in about 3.5 minutes. And the funny thing is, the ThinkPad got fairly warm and the fans kicked in while exporting, whereas the MacBook did the same thing. It only got slightly warm on the bottom, but it has no fans. So that is a pretty amazing result. So I would say that the Mac is excellent for mobile video editing. But I think with the 4-cell 51.5 watt-hour battery that's optional for the ThinkPad, this would probably get about 10 hours, which is also really good. I think most students would be quite happy with about 10-hour battery life. That'll last most of the school day. But this MacBook is a battery life king. It gets anywhere from 12 to 14 hours of continuous light to medium use, and that is just ridiculous. There's really no other company producing laptops that can match that level of battery life for the amount of performance you get. It is insane. So it really comes down to who are these two laptops for. I think the ThinkPad is very suited for some coders, engineers, and corporate professionals who need just a very durable device with high connectivity, good keyboard, and just overall solid performance. But I think the Mac is aimed at a very different user. This is a person that needs epic battery life, a person who may do some video editing, who does creative work and needs a good display to do that creative work. And honestly, for the creative professional, it's hard to go wrong with a Mac. If you're doing coding, I would say that either machine will do great for coding. If you are a coder and you need a great keyboard, go ThinkPad. If you can sacrifice on the keyboard, you can definitely go with the M2 MacBook Air. Alright, and this is simply a comparison. I do not at all regret my purchase of my Thinkpad T14 Gen 3. In fact, I am very happy with it. If I really wanted the better screen, I could have bought as an option a 500 nit just HDR display from Lenovo. They offer that. I just did not need it, and I was willing to sacrifice on the display front. But for everything else, I believe that I got a very good deal for the laptop, and if the M2 MacBook Air was capable of running programs like Revit and AutoCAD natively, it can run AutoCAD, but the Mac version, I don't like it at all. But if it can run a lot of engineering applications natively, it would be my machine. Hands down, it's really good. But the fact of the matter is, it can't run a lot of those programs natively, so I have to stick with good old Windows, and maybe even Linux on occasion. So honestly, it's up to you. For students, I think both of these laptops are amazing, and you just need to know what kind of person you are and what you need out of a laptop. So overall, I'd still give the ThinkPad about a 9 out of 10. I'd give the MacBook Air a 9 out of 10. They're both really, really good machines for what they do. Thanks for watching.